Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Coalition's spoiler breakdown for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I am your host, Dana Abercrombie, the entertainment editor at the show, or at the Coalition.com, and I am joined by Mr. Danny Martinez, contributor to the Coalition. How are you doing?
How you doing?
Wonderful. And we have not seen this face in a while. Mr. Gary A. Shuabi. How are you?
Hey, how you doing? Yeah, I've been away for a little bit. I've been busy, but I'm back. It's a Marvel movie, so I had to be here. So thanks for having me, Danny.
Wonderful. No problem. Thank you so much. So we have obviously just seen Ant-Man Quantumania, and we have thoughts. There were a lot of things that I felt that they tried to pack into this movie. So just really quickly generalize, did you love it? Did you hate it? I know there are a lot of mixed reviews with this. We'll start with you, Gary.
Um, so I'm kind of like in the middle with this. Like I won't say that I loved it or I was excited by it, but I feel like there were parts of it that were good. Like it was a fun movie, to kind of watch with family or whatever. And there was some decent moments in the film, and I feel like the actors did a great performance, especially Jonathan. He did a great job. But I also have a lot of issues with it too. So I don't know if you want me to get into that yet, but yeah, that's my feeling. I'm kind of in the middle of the scale.
We'll break all that down later. What about you, Danny?
Exactly the same way. I'm kind of lukewarm about it. It had its moments. It's definitely a fun movie. It's not a bad movie, but it's not something that wowed me aside from Kang. Kang was it. Like Kang was the movie.
Okay. Well, I hated this movie with like a passion. And then I saw it again, and I appreciate what they were trying to do. But I shouldn't have to think so long about making the connections to something in order for you just to get to the point. And I felt that it was a lot of talking with this movie. So kind of as we'll go down about, let's just talk about the positives. What was it that you did like about this, Danny?
More of the comedy that we like with Ant-Man and Paul Rudd in general. He always does well with comedy. So it's a very lighthearted movie focusing on the family stuff. I really liked. I liked the way they introduced the daughter, and interesting how they introduced MODOK as well. Kind of like that. That was really interesting. Aside from the how do you say, the comic relief part of MODOK was a little bit weird, but it was still fun. It was still fun. So it had those moments as well. What else? CGI was phenomenal. Graphics were nice. The world was amazing. With the quantum realm, I thought that was great. Aside from MODOK's face, it's still a little bit weird. And of course, Kang. Like we said it before, Kang, I think Majors was the best part about it. I was a little bit worried of how he was going to portray him, because obviously what I'm thinking about first is He Who Remains. So I'm wondering how he's going to play a more serious Kang, a more menacing Kang, and that he just knocked it out of the park. It's just he was a scary, powerful Kang.
What about you, Gary?
So what am I talking about here? What I liked? Just what I liked?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think very similar to what Danny was saying. I feel like they did a great job of just making it a cool action movie. Like I feel like I do feel like the effects have kind of taken a downturn from what they used to be, but I do like a lot of the color palettes and some of the different effects that they had in the quantum realm. They made it look like its own sort of unique thing, so I appreciate that. I understand what they were trying to do by kind of expanding the cast a little bit beyond. Like, this isn't just about Ant-Man and the Wasp. Like, they have you know, Michelle Pfeiffer's character. You have the cameos in there from Bill Murray and stuff. So there's a lot of like, you know, other characters that they kind of include and build off of. And somehow they still managed to kind of get, you know, they gave Kang his just due and let him do his thing as well with his character. So they didn't take too much away from his time in the movie. So, you know, they kind of fleshed things out a little bit with the characters and how the story comes together. So, you know, all in all, it was a fun movie. Like if you have kids, you know, you bring them to the movies to see this. I feel like it's a great movie for that, you know. Or even if, you know, you have a girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever, you know, you go to the movie together. It's a cool little movie just to watch and forget about later, you know. I feel like they did a good job just making a somewhat enjoyable movie. Now, you know, where it gets messed up is if you're actually a Marvel fan. That's where it gets a little messed up, you know, if you're a Marvel nerd. So we're going to get into that later.
We will. So kind of start off from the beginning. We have the relationship has kind of been 5 years now, or more than 5 years, a little bit more. The family is all back together, and we have that whole welcome back where Scott, he's written a book. He's now a best-selling author. He's still being mistaken for other Avengers. We have the Spider-Man part where technically nobody knows. I like how they kept that in. Nobody knows, you know, remember the identity of Peter Parker was erased. So they kept that continuity. So what was it did you like about the relationship with the family, what Scott is doing now, and kind of the interactions with each other? How did you feel about that? Anyone?
Well, for me, it was mostly about the connection between him and his daughter. And that's mostly what they focus on. Honestly, they of course they focus on a bit of Janet and Hank, but they really ignored a lot of the Wasp. The mom. What was the mom's name?
Janet.
Was it Janet? It was Janet. I'm sorry. So Hope. I'm sorry. So it's Hope. Hope is yeah. What's her name? So they ignored a lot of Hope, the Wasp. Like she's in the title, and there is not a lot going on with the Wasp. But what you see the most is just it's Scott Lang just bonding with his daughter. That's what I saw the most. That's what I liked the most as well.
But you could kind of argue that's kind of was his whole point, and why he was upset
Absolutely.
at the end of what was it, Infinity War?
Yeah, all that lost time. Yeah.
Yeah. So what about you, Gary?
Yeah, I agree with Danny, like that Hope is kind of minimalized, because there was a part where I literally forgot she was there. Like the part where Michelle Pfeiffer and Hank were all at the restaurant, and Bill Murray's there. And then, you know, a fight breaks out or whatever. And then Hope comes and I'm like, oh yeah, she's there too. You know, so I completely forgot she was there, you know, until I saw her in the suit and everything. But yeah, so they did kind of minimalize her character. But I feel like what they were trying to do is make sure everyone in that dynamic was represented. So, you know, you had the older generation represented with, you know, Michelle Pfeiffer's character and Hank. And, you know, you had, obviously, you got Scott Lang in there and you have his daughter, you know, so I feel like they wanted kind of every generation to be represented a little bit, and they did an okay job. There was a moment where I thought it was running a bit too long, like they were stalling a little bit, but they got right into the action, you know, after that restaurant scene. So, you know, they kind of fixed it with that, but it was starting to drag just a little bit. So.
See, I wonder if that was a play on words. If you look at the title, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. Remember, Janet was the original Wasp. So was it to actually focus on her and not on Hope? Because we got a Hope in Ant-Man 2.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah, I did think about that as well. It could be a play on words, like Ant-Man and the Wasp, the original Ant-Man and the Wasp, and their focus, especially because they did focus a lot about their own relationships and their missing time as well while she was stuck in the quantum realm and that hookup with, or supposed hookup with Bill Murray. So
But remember, he also hooked up with another person. He never named the name.
Right.
I don't remember. But it's been 30 years. They have needs. So kind of I really like the dynamic of the family. There was one scene that aggravated me was the pizza. Like it still looked too small for a family of 5. And then the fact that they was using the particles to shrink and make things bigger just out of the blue that really I felt wasn't really needed, like the pizza part.
It was funny, but then like in my head, I started trying to like apply logic to it, and I was like, wait, how does this work? Like, how many like pepperonis or whatever like was on it when it was small? Like, I started to apply logic, and then it was like, yeah, it seemed a bit silly.
I think yeah, I found it silly as well. I think they were trying to portray this the fact that like the PIM particles are now a more useful tool that more people are using nowadays. It's more well known, and that it has its uses. So that way Kang has his use for it. But I couldn't get past the idea that it was reminding me of that scene from Back to the Future where they stick the little pizza in the hydrator machine and it comes out big.
Very true. But also kind of jumping with the PIM particles, we now know that they, as you were saying, they're much more in use and they're used to kind of help society after the blip. Remember, everybody came back at once and people who disappeared, they lost their homes. And now that notice now with the particles, they're able to have better housing, maybe. I mean, it kind of contradicts itself because at the same time, they're still protesting. The people who were kicked out, they're homeless kind of still, but it also shows how they're able to help people. So maybe they're not able to help everyone all at once. Remember, it was like billions, you would say, disappeared. So
I mean, like the government likes to restrict a lot of those things too. It's clear that a lot of them like to keep those things close to the chest and not have the public have it accessible for the public. So maybe they have an involvement in that. I would assume.
It was interesting how it's still tied into the TV show. Remember what Falcon and Winter Soldier, how that whole Thanos was right. Everything kind of just reverted back to what it was before. Still less resources. So.
Yeah. I do like that I do like that they're kind of still touching on that a bit because that is a big deal and it wouldn't just go away that quick. And I guess the PIM particles and all that stuff is kind of like a creative way for them to kind of show that there are ways to kind of advance the society even with what happened with the blip and everything, so that society can get back to what it was before, I guess. But it's cool that they're still touching on that because that was a big deal. But yeah, that's all I got to add to that.
Okay. One of the things is so kind of afterwards with that, we have Janet has been weird ever since she came back. She doesn't talk about her time in the Quantumania or Quantum Realm, sorry. And the entire time, she doesn't say anything, which to me felt weird because I would have at least warned someone that there was Kang down there, especially knowing that he has ties to the Avengers. It kind of reminded me of, remember when Bruce Banner, when he watched Thanos kill Loki and he was sent back to Earth, he immediately warned Doctor Strange and I think Iron Man that, Thanos is coming. And Janet didn't really say anything. Do you think that was a secret that she really should have shared with everyone, even if they was to never go back to the quantum realm?
Yeah, that's one thing I was thinking like the whole time, like, why is she only bringing this up now? Like, she should have like told everyone about this beforehand. Like, so yeah, that I think that's a bit of a hole in the story. But yeah, what do you think, Danny?
There's quite a few holes in the story, and that was one of them. Like, I would think that is extremely important in preserving, your own universe, is just at least the knowledge that there is a man out there who's trying to destroy everything. Don't touch the quantum realm. And I don't care how traumatizing it is, if you've got PTSD or whatever you've been through in that realm, like that's still something you just don't leave out.
And then this kind of goes to a bigger question. remember in, I believe, Ant-Man and the Wasp, the first one, well, the second one, they went back to the quantum realm in order to get the particles needed for, what was it, time travel? For Infinity War. So how does that separate her? Don't go back to the quantum realm. It's terrible from, we just went to go pick up these particles that we need. Did she not think that that would be a connection? Because that was just weird to me. Because she didn't seem to mind in the previous movie.
I guess I would assume. I think what bothered her the most, like I'm trying to play this devil's advocate thing and just think on her perspective on it, and maybe it wasn't about messing with the quantum realm or going in and out of it, but rather sending a signal, and that signal is what got his, or at least MODOK's attention, because MODOK was the one that really noticed it. But the signal is what got their attention in the first place to find someone and pull them in. But the thing is that still that signal could have came from anyone. So, but coincidentally, obviously, it came from the right people. So, how did MODOK know that it was specifically these people? How did it know that he was connected to Ant-Man or Hank Pym or the Pym particles or anything like that? And he pulled the right people and like, oh, I found you. Now I'm gonna bring you to him, and we're finally gonna do what he set out to do. So it was just a bit too clean and convenient.
You, Gary?
They're doing that a lot in these new phases, I find, with the convenience writing. Like it's not flowing as well as it did in the first few phases leading up to Infinity War. Like now I just feel like they're writing in, like they're getting very lazy with the writing and these plot conveniences, and it's one of the things that's kind of hurting the progress of this new phase, like, and it's kind of taken away some of the authenticity and the originality that we're used to seeing, in this universe. And I'm just wondering how they're going to manage to tie everything together without breaking some of their previous plot points that they've kind of raised already. Like I think they're going to write themselves into a hole if they continue to take the lazy way out with some of these plot points.
Okay. And then also you had the technology that was used. I was wondering, did Casey invent something that was way more advanced than what they used in Ant-Man and the Wasp, the second one? And that's why I was able to reach the signal?
Yeah, you're gonna have to. The second movie, I watched it kind of briefly. Like I didn't take a lot of the second Ant-Man in, so I have like gaps in my knowledge with that film. But yeah, so were you talking about like the actual Pym particles that they used?
The actual technology that was used to send the signal. Was that smarter? Was Cassie's built smarter than what was used in Ant-Man and the Wasp? And then that's how MODOK was able to get a signal. Or was it just no signal sent at all?
Yeah, that I don't know.
I don't think there was any signals being sent. They were more on the side of like exploring and taking samples and understanding things that way. I don't think they were sending any signals, to try to contact anything, because they thought that the quantum realm was uninhabitable. Like there wasn't anyone living there aside from Janet. So because Janet also failed to mention that there is actually living beings in this realm, other people aside from her, other creatures and stuff. So they assumed it was just a barren wasteland. So I don't think they had any intention on trying to contact anything. But I think the with the daughter and Hank was also helping her along with it, like experimenting and building things. And, he made her a suit without Scott Lang actually knowing about it. So he was in cahoots with the whole thing, kind of like getting her to experiment more with the quantum realm. So I think it was just a hint to show how smart Cassie can be, the potential, and eventually give her the reins whenever we all know that New Avengers is going to come at some point. So she's going to be a part of that, and she'll probably be the smart one of the group.
See, this makes it seem like Janet is more and more the villain. She just doesn't tell anyone anything. So we finally get to the quantum realm with the whole signal, and they get sucked into the realm. What was your guys' opinions on kind of the look and the different creatures? We'll get to the rebellion that happens. They throw a lot of things in here, but there's also a rebellion. But that look and feel, and that kind of that first moment of seeing the realm down there.
For me, I love the art style for it. It was very different. It like everything was organic and kind of alive, including the buildings. Uh, so that was really
And the
cool.
sun.
Yeah, it was cool. I liked it. And yeah, there are some moments where the CGI is kind of like they could have put more into it. But I love the colors and the art style and just the way everything moved and felt. And it was definitely a sensory overload looking at everything going on.
You, Gary?
Yeah, I agree. I like the art style. They made it feel very alive and everything. I like the different kind of characters and designs and uh, the different types of creatures and stuff, like the gooey thing that was making the jokes with the holes and everything like that. So that's all cool. It reminded me a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy though. Like it felt like felt a lot like that, like experiencing like a new sort of world or planets and stuff, and meeting all these different types of creatures. Like I felt very much like I'd seen this movie before at some certain points, like because it felt like they've used that very same playbook. But yeah, it was cool. Like they did enough to make it stand out, I guess.
I hated it. I hated every aspect of it.
Of
I
the
hated
world.
the design.
Oh.
I hated because to me, I immediately got Star Wars. Then I got remember Disney's Strange World? I got little small hints of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatball. So for me, because it reminded me, and then I got Cantina from also Star Wars as well. So because it had all these different elements that it reminded me of something else, it didn't stand out as being original or unique. It just felt like they copied and paste certain things from other shows and well movies together to get Quantum Realm. And I know that there are different planets, and I really just wish that we could have expanded on that. See, one of the things that I don't like Avatar, I really hate it, but there are parts of it that feel organic and original, even though it's basically Fern Gully. With this, I just wish they would have been more inspired by things. And so that's what I had problems with. But yeah, I'm happy that everyone else loved it. I mean, I hated it, but I understand why people like it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of those situations, and I say this about video games a lot, is that video games like to mash up a lot of genres nowadays, and it's okay to do that, but there are a lot of developers nowadays that when they mash up a lot of things together, it still has to hold its own identity, not have you reminded of a lot of the same games that you played over and over again. So if you know how to do that very well, then you got yourself a great game. And that's the kind of the situation you're reminding me of with Ant-Man, is that there's this mash of all these different genres or all these different art styles and story beats and stuff, but it doesn't really hold its own identity, which is why it was lukewarm to me, because it reminds you of so much stuff. When you said Cantina, I already understand completely, like I already know what part you're talking about, like, and the Star Wars aspect of it, like during the rebellion and all that stuff, it reminds me of that as well. Like you're absolutely right with that. So there's a mash of all this stuff, which I think it's okay, but they don't do it very well because it doesn't hold its own identity.
Right. What about you, Gary?
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I mean, in terms of design, I wasn't mad at it, like, because it was like, okay, this is a quantum realm, so it didn't take me out of the experience a lot, but I do see your point. Like it did feel very mash up. And like I said, like it reminded me of Guardians, which probably means that, it wasn't all the way original. Cause like if we're all thinking about other movies while we're watching this, then, it's like, does it have enough of its own identity to kind of stand out as its own thing? I guess not. But, it didn't take me out of the story element of the film. I was just kind of like going along with it, like, okay, cool, sure, you know. So that's kind of my stance on it.
Oh,
And I was like, by that point, once we started to see more of the realm and everything, and they were like talking about the backstories and stuff, I was kind of just like, okay, give me Kang. What's Kang doing? Like, you know, I was waiting to see what was going on here, you know. Because like I said, there was a moment where it's starting to drag just a little bit, but then, you know, they kind of amped it up a little bit. So
all right.
that
So
was my
the
thought
end
process. Go ahead.
makes sense to me. So they end up splitting. We have the team of Cassie and Scott, and then we have what is it? Cassie, Scott, and Hope. And nope, not Hope. Yep, Hope. Then it's Janet and Hank. And then this is the part where we get a lot of information at once. There is a rebellion that is kind of kidnapped Scott and Cassie. And then we have the meeting with Krylar, who has connections with Janet. So how did you feel about the introduction of kind of storylines that could have been something that really wasn't?
Gary,
We have Krylar and then the rebellion.
Which one was he again?
Well, Krylar
No.
was kind of he was the original leader of the rebellion, but then he defected and went on Kang's side. He was the one who had ties with Janet and may have had a romantic relationship. So it was 30 years ago.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Bill Murray.
Yeah, Bill Murray. Yeah, I'm really bad with the names, but yeah, I feel like they lightly touched it. They didn't. They touched it, but didn't go that far with it. I think as far as they could have gone. And yeah, I don't know. Like it felt flat. It was cool to see Bill Murray. It felt more about, you know, seeing the actor himself kind of thing than it did about the actual character and the rebellion and you know how it connects to Kang and all of that stuff. I just feel like they kind of lightly touched it, and just to move the plot along, kind of, that's how it felt to me. But you know, how about you two? Did you get more out of it in terms of it being a plot point?
No, yeah, you're right. It was to watch Bill Murray be Bill Murray. I think the problem with the Krylar character was that there wasn't any character development. There wasn't any character past that we knew about, like aside from them establishing it during their conversation. It's like, oh, okay, they hooked up. Cool, that's nice. So like when he turns on them, it's kind of like, okay, that was the most predictable thing, because like he clearly has servants everywhere and he's like full of himself and all this and that. So it's like clearly he's doing well for himself, and it's probably because of Kang, and that twist happens where he betrays them. So it's like it's not impactful in any way, because there was no development between the both of them at all. So it really was just to watch Bill Murray be Bill Murray. And when you ask the question about, like, you know, them splitting up and how well did they do that part, I think that's fine, because now you get both aspects of like what's going on with the inhabitants of the quantum realm. My problem that bothered me was that everyone kept referring to Kang as him or he, or like, you know, how they do with Voldemort, you know, he who must not be named. Like, we know it's Kang, and like everyone knows, like they saturate, you know, the marketing with Kang. This movie is about Kang. We know who it is. Like, you don't have to be just dramatic and say, oh, him. We know. Like, so that bothered me a lot when they kept referring to him as him or that guy or whatever it may be. It's just we all know.
Mm-hmm. Gary.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, because like the one thing with that is it's like if you keep referring to him as him, it's like you're kind of showing that you revere this character, or like he's some mighty, you know, kind of deity in this realm or something like that, you know. So the thing with that is that it was building up my expectations of what we were going to see. So, you know, if everyone's kind of like referring to him in that way,
So it didn't bother you
yeah.
as much with that type of thing, because it kind of made me feel like they were trying to pull that He Who Remains type of feeling, like, oh,
Yeah.
who is this guy, this mysterious man? But we already knew who it was. But you got more of a sense of that he was just revered. He was feared.
That's
weird.
what
That was weird.
that's what I was like getting from it. I thought, okay, so are they referring to him in this way because he's he's the mighty Kang? Like, of course, us as a viewer, we know who it is already, but I was trying to put myself in their shoes and be like, okay, so he must be like a real kind of, like you said, a mysterious, dark figure in this realm. And it was kind of, I was taking it, and it was kind of building up my expectations of what type of Kang we were going to see here, and they kind of dropped the ball later, but yeah, that's how I was taking it. But I completely see your point now in hindsight, about them referring to him in that way.
Oh, it makes sense. It makes sense from your point of view too, though. I understand that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're in great fear of someone, it kind of, the analogy of Voldemort to me felt correct. You just don't say his name, but you know that everything you're trying to do is to stay alive from him, stay alive to defeat him. And you're watching him. You've seen beforehand the destruction, or you're told the destruction that he has caused. There's a lot of talking and less seeing. I really wish that we could have gotten more seeing than talking. But the fact that they didn't really say his name never bothered me, really. Because to me, everyone was in fear. And then, of course, when we get later to like even the buildings were in a sense in fear of him, that's unique. That I will give them a credit for. They get all the stars for that. The buildings. So with this part, we finally get the introduction of Kang. I think I'm skipping some parts, but we get the introduction of Kang where we have one group ends up getting who was it? MODOK comes, I believe. We get the introduction of MODOK and Kang. So we got to talk about obviously the MODOK of the room and Kang's introduction, which was interesting. Any feelings on MODOK?
I like MODOK in the comics. I enjoy him, and this wasn't him. Although I still enjoyed this MODOK in this sense that it's a refreshing new take, and I think they're trying to go for more of that Hulu character, that comedic performance in that Hulu show that they have. This isn't the MODOK that I know, so it was just okay, but it's very mixed feelings about it, and of course you can only do so much with a giant head, especially for CGI. So he just looks very strange. And it put me off every time they show his face, and every time he spoke like a normal human, like kind of like a very timid human, actually, at that. So he was different. That's all I can say. He was just different.
Very.
Yeah. I was at first I was a bit weirded out by it, like, why'd they do this to him, like, but it was, I feel like in all of these movies, they kind of, they always have this kind of comedy relief character or something that they kind of mock throughout the whole thing. Like, I mean, in Thor, they had like those goats or whatever. I feel like MODOK was kind of like that thing for this, well, it's between him and the gooey thing, I guess. But I thought it was cool to kind of see that character again, because it's a nice callback to the first movie and everything. I do think they could have went a different direction with it. I would have appreciated maybe a more serious and darker MODOK. Like, I would have very much appreciated that. But I just feel like this is the formula Marvel has. Like, they're very formulaic at this point. They do the same thing, over and over. And by this point in the movie, I was starting to realize that, okay, this is another, normal Marvel movie. Like, is what we've come to expect now. So, when I dropped my expectations, like when I first saw the character, I was like, okay, I just rolled with it. And it was cool to see that actor again, and everything. But very weird direction. But it is what it is. This is what we gotta expect now, I guess. But what did you think, Dana?
I thought it was a massive missed opportunity. Okay, so you can't help MODOK's design because that's just how he's designed. It's weird and it's ugly. Okay. It was interesting how we got kind of the backstory of him landing in the quantum realm again, and because of that, it kind of shaped his deformity. And Kang was the one who rescued him. So it would have been interesting to see him, being dedicated towards Kang, because Kang also rebuilt him and gave him all of this technology. So it would have been great to see kind of that struggle between, I don't want to follow you, but I feel like I owe you my life. So at the same time, he designed me as a killing machine, and we never got the killing machine aspect of it. He would have been a great source of weapon for Kang. We never got that as well. And, even when we fast forwarded to the end with the I'm not a dick anymore kind of weird joke, there really wasn't any of that split indecision. Even remember, Kang attacked him and almost choked him out when him and Paul Rudd was in the room. So I would have loved to see that abuse side of, well, I'm trying my best, but I can never do anything right. Even though he's using the comic relief, it could have been a balance between the seriousness. And that's why what I hated the most about Thor Love and Thunder, when we see Christian Bale, his character is God the Butcher. He never butchered. His daughter was killed. We thought this was going to be a serious time. And they kind of made a joke about it the whole movie.
Exactly.
So for me, it was a missed opportunity. And therefore, his death at the end meant nothing because he didn't really sacrifice anything. And he just made the decision to start, being on their side. But it was was this a struggle? I don't understand what the whole point was. It was a throwaway character, which again is a missed opportunity, because even if he lived, we could have had him team up with Kang and just continue to be an unstoppable force. Because remember, he can also, yeah.
Oh no, carry on. Finish what you were saying, and then I'll go.
From what I remember or understand, Kang's technology is controlled by his consciousness. So if he built MODOK's kind of armor and his whole design, does that mean that Kang can control him that way as well? It's a lot of things that they didn't answer. And so I just didn't understand what they was trying to do with MODOK, aside from he just have his moment at the end and then die and then make a dick joke.
Yeah, I don't like that they do that. They take all of these cool characters from the lore of Marvel and then they just make jokes out of them, basically, and comedy relief. I don't like when they do that much. But I want to ask you, do you think that this is maybe some of the Disney influence, and do you think that they are scared to really go the darker route that we want to see? Because like you said, there's a lot of missed opportunity here with this character. Do you think it's just because they're scared to kind of go darker and more serious with these characters? And do you think that they want to cater to the family dynamic to make more money, so that more people can come out to see these movies? Do you feel that's what it is, why they keep doing these things?
Well, see, I would argue that WandaVision, in terms of what we've seen in MCU, was kind of dark. Her family is dead. It was about grief. She rebuilt her family from grief. And then at the end, they had to die again in order for her to move on. That is pretty dark in what we have seen in MCU-ish. Even, and I would say that would have been the most well-executed kind of plot or that we could have gotten, that we also could have gotten with God the Butcher. But I think that it could be that, but also because if you look at it, the way that Marvel has been turning out TV shows and movies, it's a non-stop cycle. They don't allow, I feel, their writers to breathe with the script and to really stretch things out and to let the writers think about certain things. So it could be that, and it could be, a combination of we have to appeal to kids as well. This also makes
Yeah.
me scared of Mephisto, because is Mephisto going to be just some kind of clown the entire time?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think I definitely think they don't give the writers enough time to flesh these things out. You know, because like you were saying with the Kang, you know, how he created him and does he have a level of control over him and stuff, like, you know, it's like they don't have the time to really get into those details because they don't, you know, give them that kind of time, I guess. And because instead they try to like check off the, you know, they tick off the check boxes and stuff, and they keep to the same formula and everything. And with WandaVision, I think, you know, I think they were able to get a bit darker because, you know, it was for the platform, you know, the streaming service, Disney and stuff. So maybe they were able to get a bit darker with those, because they don't need to fill up, you know, the theater full of seats, you know, with family and stuff like that. So I guess
Well,
it's a mix of reasons, I guess.
the Infinity Saga was dark as well, but that's like when MCU was at its prime, its peak.
Yeah.
Ever since then, it kind of, you know, went down. You can argue Falcon and Winter Soldier, but then again, Disney Plus, that dealt with serious topics, racism. You can look at, remember that whole situation with the bank loan thing? We knew what it was about. It may have went over some people's heads, but we know when you have a whole black staff, we knew what the message and the themes that they was trying to get with that. And also being a black superhero in America, while he's not being called the N-word, there were subtle hints of things not being bright and sunny, you know. So it touched upon that, but again, the execution but of Disney Plus, maybe that's different. Danny, what do you think?
I think the both of you are right. I think Disney, I think they're capable of doing dark storylines or dark-ish storylines, because we have yet to get anything really like hardcore or rated R in any sense. Crossing fingers for Deadpool. But I think they're capable of doing an adult and dark storyline, but at the same time, Gary, with the whole formulaic idea is what Disney does. I think after they tried to go the serious route with Thor 1 and 2, and Thor 2 really bombing because of how serious it was, they went more comedic and it worked. So they were like, oh, this is a formula right here. We have to add a little bit of comedic you know, stuff into all of our movies because that's what they like. So with Ant-Man 3, for example, it's like, oh, maybe they looked at it and they're like, it's not comedic enough, it's not funny enough, it's not lighthearted enough. We have to fit a little bit of something in there. So they kind of just like, what's that big-headed dude doing? Okay, let's just change his thing. Maybe he could be the funny one because he looks funny. So they, you know, they can change things to fit the formula because they know that's what works, and that's business. You're trying to get as many butts into the seats as possible. So you gotta kind of work with the adults and for the kids watching this movie.
Right. And if you really look at the history of Disney itself, with all of the original cartoons were dark as all can be. Bambi was dark. Dumbo was like extremely dark. And I know Disney doesn't like to acknowledge this movie anymore. Remember Song of the South? So they may not want to repeat that, but give us something. Because if you look at it this way, the fans who were there during the very beginning of Iron Man, they're now adults with probably kids of their own. They can tolerate it. They can handle it. I wish their movies would grow with the audience so you can get more darker.
Exactly that. I agree with you, because just sorry, real quick, yeah, like with the Harry Potter series, for example, as that series went on, the books, it got darker and darker and darker because the you know, the audience got to grow with the books and the story. So I really wish they would do that. And you can't give us a peak like Infinity War and then go back. You know, it's like we want more of that. We want more of Infinity War and WandaVision. Like we want these things. So Yeah, but sorry, Danny, I cut you off. What was you going to say?
Actually, I was gonna give you a similar example of comparison when it comes to wrestling. Like we grew up with wrestling in like the '90s and the Attitude Era and stuff like that, and the storylines and the content nowadays is more kid friendly because they're more pandering towards the children and not towards us who grew up with the product. So it's kind of like they lost their way, because we don't like the content as much as before. But if you were to talk to like a 10-year-old, they'd probably love it.
Yeah, well, John Cena was one of the most popular wrestlers solely because of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And he never changed. He was very formulaic and never changed. Even to this day, he is considered the good guy, the baby face.
Yeah,
So,
they lean more towards the kids.
Yeah. So then, is Marvel for us then? Should we move on? Is DC now the new mantle?
I'm damn sure not moving on, but the content is different now. I don't think it's really grown with us. I think it's moving on to another demographic, and it's gonna change, and I think it's gonna mess with our source material that we grew up with more and more and more, especially once they start catching up to the comics. Like eventually they'll probably have a Civil War 2, another Secret Wars or whatever it may be. If you look at if you look at the Secret Invasion, that's very different from the comics, except the fact that they're introducing the Skrulls a little bit more. But it seems like to me it's a different story. So they're changing a lot of things because they're trying to make it for the new generation.
Yeah, that's true. So then, you wanted to say yes?
Just one more final note on that. I don't want to spend too much time on this because it is a Marvel thing, but I will say because of this whole, them catering to the kids and the family, I think it leaves the door open for this new wave of DC to give us mature viewers what we want. Like, that Snyder cut, if they go down that route, and follow that kind of tone, they could really, do something special with that. But, I'll leave that there because, we're talking about Marvel right now. So.
Mm-hmm. And then side note, I started reading that Supergirl comic that they're doing for the movie. That's dark. That's very dark. So yay. I hope they stick to that. Moving on to Kang. This version of the Conqueror. Massive different than He Who Remains because they're not the same person, kind of their variants. So, what did you think of Jonathan's Major? His performance in this, vastly different than what we've seen in Loki. He's able to be versatile. We're getting a lot of Kangs, as we know, but about this version so far, what stood out? What did you wish you wanted more of, or you think they fulfilled everything?
For me, I thought he was the movie, and I think his performance was the best we've had in a long time when it comes to villains, because Thanos was it, and everything else. Like I love Christian Bale as an actor, but his performance as Gore was meh, and that's not even because of him. It's mostly because of the writing of the movie, in my opinion. So he was amazing. He was threatening, but he was still sympathetic in a sense. He had all these. He gives you this mix of emotions of like whether he really means well or not, and yet he's still a dangerous person. The way he spoke was reminded me a bit like William Shatner in a sense, like with all the kind of pauses and stuff like that. But it was still very menacing, and it was almost like he was very calculated, even with the way that he spoke. Like he was very cautious and very like stern with what he meant to say, and the questions he asked, and he just demanded. He had a presence.
Dr.
Doom. Yeah. I agree. Like I completely agree. He made this movie, and like you were saying, Dana, like Jonathan Majors, he's shown how versatile he is. He can play different versions of Kang. Of course, in the post-credits scene, we see even more. And yeah, like he did a great job. He nailed it. I'm just upset with the movie and the writing itself for what they did to him. but he took what they gave him and he ran with it. He did a great job, and he was menacing when he needed to be. He was very, definitely a more serious kind of Kang, more focused. And when now another critique I have of this movie is some of the action scenes. I feel like they weren't that great. Like I was expecting a lot more, because I was waiting for a long time to really see him in combat and kind of fighting and doing his thing. But I feel like they fell flat with that a little bit. But he did a good job of making us anticipate that, though. So yeah, I feel like it was a good version of Kang. I'm just upset with how it turned out in the end. That's all.
Right. So for me, I genuinely hated the way how he was talking, as that like, how are you doing? And again, William Shatner, it reminded me of. But then here's the thing. I watched the last episode of Loki. And remember, He Who Remains is basically, he considered himself the screenwriter. Remember, he could type out everything that you said and would go back and show you what you said. I wonder if that was on purpose, his speech, because I don't know if he knows. He probably does know that He Who Remains is dead, but the way how he spoke was very careful, as if someone was dictating or writing down everything that he was saying. So that one was interesting. And then also it kind of goes back to the after credit scenes where everyone is watching what everyone or the other Kangs are doing. And basically, remember, your history, or basically your life, what you're doing right now, is predestined, or so far we've seen it's kind of made, I don't know how to explain it, but it's not you're not really in control of your actions and decisions. That we kind of learned for Loki. Remember, that entire world was manipulated so that Loki and Sylvie would meet, and so that we can get Kang, He Who Remained Kang, could get the outcome that he wanted. So I wondered if that was how it affected Kang the Conqueror's speech, because he seemed to be someone who was very aware. When we get to the part where, remember, he said, oh, I crash landed, I'm just stranded. He played multiple levels of one. He had to do manipulation, first with Janet, then kind of a little bit with Scott. So he knew exactly what he wanted to say and how he was going to say it to each person. And then it was later on when Janet was able to touch the ship, which I think was just really kind of cheap and just easy. What do you call that word? When something is convenient. It was just convenient for how we revealed who he really was. I hated that, but his entire demeanor changed, kind of a more threatening. So I loved that part. The fact that they blew up, or they blew up the size of the core that he needed for the ship, which was kind of genius. Remember, we did the trailer breakdown. We thought it was like, is it a ship? But now we know what it actually was. It was the core. So I think that was really interesting. I still say that the writing on the core was very similar to the Bengals with Miss Marvel. So I'm sticking by this.
Yeah.
So for me, it seems like the Marvel writers are really good at putting connections throughout the movies, but they just can't execute everything fully, because again, it seems like everything's rushed. So maybe that's what their main focus is just connecting everything. I don't know. But for Kang, I loved him. I love the different dynamics that he played. I love the fact that he was soft-spoken, because to me, that's more scary than someone screaming and yelling at you, do this, do that. Instead, when you're like, oh, well, then I'll just kill you. Or he just stares at you like, you're going to do this, right? And then he stares at you and you're like, oh, I better do this. So I love that dynamic that he played there. So for me, like everyone else, Kang was the highlight of this movie. And I loved it. I wish he should have been in the title. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Kangmania. So, yeah, but we didn't get that. But I really liked what we did get. And so I was wondering, did you guys feel any kind of Loki connection or no? Or was it just me?
Uh, throughout the movie itself, I didn't get any Loki thing. I did question though, like when he crash landed and he's saying they banished me. I'm
Mhm.
wondering who is they, and the first people that came to my mind honestly was the Avengers. So I was like, maybe in his timeline Avengers finally got to him and banished him somehow in some way, but obviously it makes more sense with the Council of Kings, because of how dangerous he was trying to get rid of the other kings and stuff. But
Mhm.
I I want to understand more about how Loki was connected to after the multiverse was rebirthed again. Did the Kangs automatically get back together and created a council? Did automatically Kang the Conqueror just start like, oh crap, I gotta start killing these Kangs again now because I already know what to expect. Like we don't know anything that happened between Loki season 1 and the release of the multiverse versus like the point that where Kang is now. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's what I'm interested in.
Well, I thought when. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was saying like that's what upset me a little bit because I thought we were gonna learn a bit more about that in this movie, like how all of that connects. But yeah, carry on, Dana.
No, I was gonna just say I'm slightly confused about the different timelines always existed, it seems, because if you look at the Loki, the finale of Loki, he was explaining the war, and that the war has always been happening, which kind of also explained that's not when all of the timelines would have kind of separated when Sylvie stabbed He Who Remains, from my understanding, right? So then only Kang has the. I'm confused as to only the Kangs have the power to go through different timelines.
They apparently have the technology to do all that. Yeah, to live in time and space at the same time, or whenever they want to, or whatever. And yeah, they explained that like there was a war that happened between the Kangs and pretty much
Right,
demolished a
before.
lot of the multiverse before. So this other He Who Remains, or I don't know if anyone else was involved, but they made everything into one timeline. So it's almost like those Kangs never existed anymore. So
Oh, okay.
when Sylvie did the stabbing and released the multiverse back up again, my question is, did they continue to fight, or what we're seeing is what happened before? Like Kang the Conqueror, is that him before everything happened or after everything happened? How does it all connect with Loki in the first place? And I'm hoping they explain something in season 2.
Yeah. Well, season 2 looks like they're gonna explain hopefully a lot, because we know,
Yeah.
well, Kang is not involved. Nathaniel is. So, yay.
Wait,
It sounds like
Nathaniel showed
that
up
was
somehow?
Nathaniel.
Where?
Wait, did you not see the
Huh?
after credit? Did you not see the after
Oh,
credit?
on stage. When he's on stage, that was Nathaniel Richards?
That was Nathaniel Richards.
Oh, I didn't get that. I didn't catch that one.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew he was
That,
obviously another Kang, but I didn't catch that was
wait,
Nathaniel.
wait, no, that was Rich, but it's connected to Nathaniel,
Uh-huh.
wasn't it? Because it was Victor.
I thought it was Kang.
Kang
No,
is
it's not Kang.
Nathaniel, but I
They're
didn't
all.
yeah, I didn't catch who that was. I don't know if it was like an old Kang or a Kang that went back in time, like in that point of time, at point in time or something, but it was,
Well,
I don't
that
know.
was the dude who's like they're in like 1908
Yeah.
in that time period.
Yeah.
So
I do have a
yeah.
question for you too, though, because I'm not all the way familiar with the Kang story, but I know that
Mhm.
Secret War is coming, and to
Ah,
me, it's
Victor Timely.
Victor Timely,
say
yes.
that again. Say that again, Dana.
Victor Timely was the guy, not Nathan. It gets confusing, but that was Victor Timely.
Okay.
What was your question?
Yes.
Yeah. So, because I was talking to my friend, me and my friend went to go see the movie, and I'm not 100%. I haven't read like the Kang comics or anything, so I'm not 100% like, you know, in tune with his story. And then, but I know Secret Wars is coming, and I know parts of the Secret Wars story. So all of this is leading up to that. So Kang, is it true that Kang is basically taking Doctor Doom's place in the new Secret Wars? Like, is that what they're doing? Because it feels like
not.
Okay.
I'm really not. I think that's where they're leading at, but because Fantastic Four is still yet to come out, and they're still working on Fantastic Four, like we'll still see it. I'm pretty sure from the timeline they gave us, we'll still see Fantastic Four before Secret Wars. So I'm hoping with Fantastic Four they introduce finally a proper Doctor Doom, and he's involved in Secret Wars. But I kind of feel like they're going more the Kang route.
Yeah, because after this, I just don't know where they're going. Like, I'm just confused. Like, where are they taking this Kang thing? Like, that's my thing.
Because then they'd have to introduce the Beyonder if they want to be more comic accurate as well. Like, where does the Beyonder fit in with all this? And who is the thing that there's a superhero, Molecule Man. Like those that would be more comic accurate if you're doing Secret Wars. But that's a whole lot of story and exposition they have to like work on in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and that's what annoys me as well about this movie, because like 2025 is going to come very quick, and I feel like they need to be like building up some of these storylines that are going to be part of that, you know, Secret Wars. So that's what kind of had me feeling a little like, you know, deflated at the end of the movie. I was like, nothing happened in this movie, like literally. It's like, what's going on? But yeah, carry on, Dana.
No, it's something to look forward to, but also worrisome. So I just hope that they're able to execute everything more smoothly. I know we're only getting, what is it, like one movie and a TV show a year, or at least 2 TV shows and a movie a year. So that should hopefully smooth everything out. Fingers crossed. But so we got the Kang situation, and we learned that who he really is. The relationship between him and Janet was really interesting to me. We kind of seen that friendship and camaraderie, and then the things went to complete poop. She left him down there, and then, you know, that goes back with the whole thing of the signal again. When was it between that time and her kind of enlarging the core did she send the signal again one time to her family? And why was it multiple times she was sending the signal? We don't know. But again, this goes back to Janet's the real villain to me, because she knew what was happening and said nothing. And he was angry too. So extra weird to me. So we got this whole interaction. We kind of now with the rebel wars or rebellion. What did you guys think of that? Because we know that they were running in fear, and we're being told repeatedly that he's killing everything. He built an army that we did not get to see, but it's just there. How do you feel about that, and how do you explain that situation? Do we need a whole rebellion? And the guy who can kind of read your thoughts, and then it never was executed properly?
Go ahead, Danny.
Okay, I was waiting on you. I don't think we really needed it, and even during when we got the last final scenes and they're fighting, trying to take over the city and all that stuff, I think they were a nice distraction. But I think if you took away the rebellion part, the only part that really made a difference was that whole army of ants that came in and kind of like helped and stopped everything. So like nothing really impacted the story or the war or anything else with that rebellion to me. Like all you had to do was just have the ants show up and save the day. They took away Kang and they messed with his technology and stuff, so it was all broken. He couldn't really rely on it anymore. Like that was pretty much the most important part of that whole scene right there. So I wasn't crazy about it. I don't know if they were maybe trying to introduce new characters for whatever reason, maybe trying to see and feel if anybody had any good reaction to some characters to like make us another spin-off or something, or make some toys or whatever it may be, because studios like to do that, is kind of like make up stuff to try to see if they can make toys out of it, or spin-offs or cartoons or whatever it may be. And I don't know, that just none of it really resonated to me.
Yeah, I don't feel the moment was like earned. Like it felt like they just wanted a way to put bodies on screen kind of thing. It's like every movie has to have this big battle now, I guess. And this was like their way to kind of set up the battle pieces, and everything. But it just didn't feel earned to me. Like it didn't. The storyline wasn't. It wasn't like really built up in an interesting way. It's just, like I said before, like the Bill Murray character was just there to be Bill Murray. I didn't feel, any sense of like urgency or intensity for this battle. Like I was there for Kang by that point, and like Danny said, the ants, that was the big moment. And that was pretty cool to see the ants and everything make an appearance, but at the same time, it was a little annoying how they were able to cripple, Kang, kind of like, but it was very cool to see it though, the giant ants and everything. So that's really what made that whole scene, the battle and everything.
Yeah, that was a Star Wars moment.
I got excited for the ants, because remember, they fell into a pocket where time, I guess, is much slower. So for them, they was down there for decades, learning technology and building and educating themselves and advancing. And so that's how they were able to come in with all of this new technology to kind of defeat Kang. They knew what was going on. It was like, hey, give us a couple decades. We're going to be right there with you. So it was interesting seeing how time works differently in the quantum realm, which was, again, explained in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Because remember, he was down there for 5 years, but to him, it was like, what, 20 minutes? No, 5 hours. So that was interesting. Again, but you could also argue that it's convenience, because, oh, here comes the ants. Well, we kind of expected, because the ants came down with him when they were sucked into the quantum realm. We knew something was maybe going to happen, but we had it in the back of our minds. I didn't really much pay attention to it. I do wonder if the smart ants are now. Did they stay down there, or did they stay down there?
Yeah.
So then I wonder if they'll find a way to beam themselves back up to Earth and be used later on, come during the Secret Wars. You just see an army of giant ants approaching all the Kangs.
What was that term that people use when something saves you? Like Deus Ex Machina, was it, or something?
Yeah, Deus Ex Machina.
I feel like that it would be hilarious if there was a Deus Ex Machina in every single Ant-Man movie from this point on. They just randomly showed up for no reason.
Yeah, so I like that part. The rebellion, again, didn't make it's not. It was because it wasn't explained, because we wasn't there with these characters and seeing how they were being suffered, and see the army that was being built and how they were oppressed by the army. I didn't care. They created moments in the movie that kind of forced an emotion, but I didn't care that if any of them died. I had no connection to any of the characters. Again, it was that weird kind of fill in the comedic aspect, especially with the guy who can read your mind. Oh no, he's not lying. He's lying. Oh, okay, that's cute. But again, poorly executed. Could have been much better with that as well. And I think it was just something to use as kind of design, something that's going on in the back while we really focus on what's going on with Kang and everybody kind of fighting him, and Kang losing his sense of control and power. Because remember, he's able to also use that Star Wars technology, where he's blown up really big and talk to the people. and kind of put that fear. You see, like, oh no, we're fear. I was wondering, are they slaves to him? Because remember, they was working and they looked rather miserable. So we, again, a lot of questions we never got any answers to, but I wasn't there for it. I was more concerned about the Kang and how they're going to take him down. And then that led to another thing of being bothered. We have that whole fight scene between Kang and Paul Rudd. He's supposed to be the conqueror. How do you feel about that scene?
I was incredibly disappointed. I think they were trying to really portray his power through his technology when he was kind of like killing all the resistance, and that was a pretty cool scene. Yeah. But he was destroying people during that scene. But once he was down to just his fists, he was getting beat up by Ant-Man of all people. Like, Ant-Man is not, even in the comics, he Ant-Man was always more of a support character. And a character for like development or like involving pin particles for whatever reason, but like Ant-Man as the savior for Kang the Conqueror, I was not happy with the way that was portrayed.
Yeah, that this is really my biggest complaint of the whole movie, like, because I was waiting the whole movie for Kang to kind of, you know, start fighting, start destroying everything, and become this big dominating villain that he's kind of been hyped up to be so far. And like, you know, we all watch wrestling here, right? This felt like the new big bad heel getting squashed by a mid-carder, like, you know, on the roster. Like, this way it felt like to me. So yeah, that was the biggest downer of this whole movie. Like, it kind of got me not excited at all for anything in you know, this next phase, because if this is how we're moving into this new phase or whatever, it's like, what is there to look forward to at this point? You know, it's like he's supposed to be hyped up to be the new Thanos, like, or the new villain of that level, you know, the new big bad guy, and he got taken out by Ant-Man. And I know this is a variant and there's different versions, but it just, I don't know, it just kills the momentum for me to see Ant-Man beat him, you know, like that. So, yeah.
It was Roman Reigns versus Sammy, minus the build-up.
Yeah. Sammy won in this point, in this version, apparently.
Yeah, this timeline, he wins. Yay. Yeah, no, I thought it was terrible. I thought it didn't make any sense. And you know what made me really angry was during the trailers, we got the line, you don't have to win, or we don't have to win, we just both have to lose. So in my mind, oh, they're being stuck down in the quantum realm together. And then his family goes off and they live. He says goodbye to his daughter, and this is his fate. Him and Kang down in the quantum realm. And I'm like, I'm going to cry. This is hysterical. This is going to be the greatest movie ever. We get none of that. No one dies except for the throwaway characters.
No sacrifice.
And the computer dude, MODOK. What? I was so upset about that. I wanted my payoff. We didn't get a payoff. And so we have the whole fighting thing, and the family ends up opening the portal, but somehow they can reopen it again, which was weird, but convenient. Okay. And then he runs through, and then I guess Kang is either killed through the quantum, or maybe he just disappears. We don't really get an answer on that. So sorry. Oh, sneezed.
Bless you.
We don't get an answer on that. So, oh, sorry.
Oh, bless you. Yeah.
So that was just a massive letdown for me. I did not like that no one died. Remember, we thought Hank was dying in the trailer. You know, that whole line, I was like, oh, somebody's going to die. But for Kang to maybe die, it broke my heart. It made me sad. So, yeah. So, but this kind of leads into an interesting thought that I had. So they return home. Everything is kind of back to normal. But if you listen to, he has that monologue about, everything is great. And I'm kind of like the hero. And everyone's high-fiving him and looking at him. And what's really interesting is if you look at the movie, there are people who are wearing purple. And we know that Kang's color is purple as he's walking down the street. And he has this weird sense of dread. Like, did I really win that? I don't know what's going on. He becomes kind of paranoid about it. So clearly it's had an effect on him. I was wondering, could be completely out there, if what happened in the quantum realm could for some reason what ended up being either a simulation or maybe he's in a time loop where the reality that he returned to is not the same just because of how it was filmed. People are in purple. It seemed to be in that weird loop, and they're kind of overexcited, and they know who Scott Lang is. But he was stuck in the quantum realm, so it's not like people would know of his journeys of defeating Kang. From my understanding, regular people don't know who Kang is. He's not a Thanos situation where everybody knew who he was. So could it be that this is a simulation or a loop or some kind of way of control? Because remember, he who remained, he controlled everything that Sylvie did. And remember, Kang the Conqueror, he knew who all the Avengers were. He just got him confused. And remember, he answered to Cassie as Jellybean. So could this have been all a setup by either the Council to maybe help them to find out if Scott is strong enough to help them in their Secret War journey?
Yeah, me and my friend we were kind of discussing this after. We were like, did what happened to Kang, like him going into the core or whatever it was, like, did that maybe do something that makes him more powerful? And it could be a situation like you said where Scott got sent back to some false world, like that doesn't really exist, like it's not his true reality kind of thing. But and that could be the case, that could be what they're doing. But my feeling is that if that is the path they went down, I feel like we should have got some final kind of payoff of it, like seeing that, like show don't tell kind of thing. Like we should have seen Kang, I don't know, laughing about it or whatever it is, like we should have got that in the end, kind of to confirm that. Because now it's just it's a speculation now. We don't know for sure if they're going to pull the trigger on that. So yeah. But what do you think about that, Danny?
I could see it going that way. I could understand that, especially with the people wearing purple. I didn't even catch that, so I wanna check that out again. But there is a theory that's somewhat similar that I've heard a couple of places say, and that the whole entire thing is a time loop. It would be nice that the whole entire Kang saga is actually a time loop, like him in the council kind of like starting war, and then the Avengers kind of step in and kind of they're the ones that banish Kang, and then Kang ends up in the quantum realm and then gets destroyed again, and then Ant-Man leads up to the Avengers things, and then back to the council, and then back to like banning him, and it's kind of like a loop. It was very convoluted, but like I kind of like that idea of something along those lines being some sort of time loop, or you're stuck in a variant situation, and it leaves to more possibilities. But I didn't catch that with the ending of Ant-Man itself, which would be pretty cool. My thought about Kang dying is it's possible that he's not dead, because he probably did get sucked into that, because he does have another universe pretty much in that MacGuffin there. as we saw with like Scott Lang and his multiple variants and stuff, like multiplying and stuff when he was at the center of it. So maybe he's stuck in there and he goes mad and crazy like Scott was supposed to. And maybe he finally comes out as the real big bad that we all want to see, like the real Kang the Conqueror, because now he's more crazy than ever coming out of it. I do have a question though, like, because if he is dead, if he's gone, and they introduced these other Kangs, so they had Immortus Kang, Rama Tut Kang, and then I can't remember the name of the third one, but they introduced those, and I'm wondering if you guys think that are we still gonna have Kang the Conqueror as the big bad, or possibly just one of those, or maybe one that we haven't seen yet, maybe.
This is what frustrates me, because I feel like going forward, we're going to just get a variant Kang, because it is Dynasty. A variant Kang spread throughout until we get the big baddie. Kang the Conqueror could just be, again, like you said, a MacGuffin, where he comes back even stronger, learning the knowledge that he had before. But I just hope that they don't cheapen the Kang experience by giving us all of these Kangs, so that when we get to Kang, we just don't care anymore.
That's true. That's true. Because if we get a Kang, let's say, for every single movie, and then every single Kang is defeated by one Avenger, that kind of reduces his reputation.
Yeah, completely agree. That is my fear as well with this. That, you know, by the time we get the big bad, like, it's going to be so overdone already. We just won't care anymore. Like,
yeah, because see, what made Thanos so successful was, in a way, every person that was after him, even though there was individual stories, we slowly got to see his lackeys. We never got Thanos until it was time for Thanos to arrive in the movie he did that I can't remember.
He one man the Hulk, like that was a show of power right there.
He remember, Hulk never kind of recovered from that. He never came back out during that scene again. He kind of just became Smart Bruce. He changed his whole way of life because of that encounter. So you had that whole thing going down. But this one, if you're gonna do a threat that's even more powerful than Thanos, you gotta treat him better than what you're doing to him now. He's coming across as a joke. He technically died twice. He who remains is dead. Yeah. This one King is dead. The other kings, if you notice, they exiled him. They didn't even kill him. And it was, remember, there was 3 of those kind of holes, black holes that he went through that we saw, which were made by 3 of the variants. It took 3 of them, and all they could do was just exile him. But yet come along Scott Lang, he was the one who stopped him? That doesn't make sense. That's tacky. Ew.
Yeah, and I love Jonathan Majors in the role and everything, but at this point, with how they're doing Kang, like, I'm just more excited to see Doom at this point, hence the name, you know. So because they're just doing Kang so dirty at the moment.
Dr. Doom is one of my favorite villains.
I wonder if how they're going to pull that off. But then kind of going, so we had the after credits. The first one we got were, what was it? It was Victor Timely from Loki, who's going to be the big bad in season 2. What we do know about him is that he is kind of an inventor. He was, okay, so it was the year 1901 where he founded a town called Timely, Wisconsin. And it was basically where he built all of his technology, and he learned about his knowledge during the future of all time. So again, it's another He Who Remains-ish kind of character. So he built his capital city of Chronopocalypse, which is which is kind of re-envisioned as the city built within Quantum Realm.
Yeah.
So we already have that connection there. And so we have that, but he is a multiverse time traveler. So he's kind of okay. Maybe not. And he first came in the Timely Comics, which was in 1961. So anyone who wants to read that, yay. So we know that he has a time travel device when we see him in Loki, and he's explaining the device and the time travel, and that's when, we have Morbius say, "Oh, that's the guy. That's the one who you were so worried about." And remember, Loki is the only one who retained all of his knowledge about what happened. And so he's like scared about this because he knows what's going to happen. He knows about the Kang Wars. He knows about the whole Dynasty era and what's going to happen. So he's genuinely afraid and he's trying to stop it on his end. So we're going to have maybe Victor Timely be the big bad for season 2 of Loki, which I thought was a nice introduction. To me, again, if you just take the last 40 minutes of this movie, that's all you really needed. Just like with Loki, Loki's a bit more complicated. Loki, I appreciated much more after I saw this to see what they was actually building. It's like everything in Loki they built just to prepare us for Quantumania. Even remember, there was the 3 statues that nobody paid attention to that actually represented the 3 Kangs that ended up being in the Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. And remember, there was a whole room where there was a 4th statue that was destroyed. And that was after, this is why I think Kang the Conqueror died, but then again, red herring. That statue was destroyed, which also represents the downfall of Conqueror. So, I don't know. But we do know that Loki season 2 is coming, so he's going to figure out who this Kang is and probably the other variants of Kang. And we do know that this is a time travel show. We've seen very glimpses. We have not gotten a trailer, but we've seen like teasers, like a 10-second spot where we know they time travel. Does this make you excited for Loki season 2? Or is just another build up to it might be Kang?
I loved the first season. It was great. The second season, I think they'll do well with the second season. I think they'll connect more stuff, and Hiddleston does a great job. So I don't know how they would work that with Victor Timely, but I'm hoping they do Kang a bit more justice again this time around. I don't know if he would be the big bad, or if anything, he could actually be the actual Kang the Conqueror, just going by a different name, and he develops into that crazy maniacal one that we all know. But that's just me throwing my own quick idea out there. But I have faith. I have faith in season 2.
Very nice. Doom.
Yeah, they got me interested in watching the second season of Loki because I want to see how they're gonna try and connect the dots now. So yeah, they did enough to get me interested. But explain to me how Morbius is there, because I didn't see the Morbius movie. But
no, I didn't mean Mobius.
Oh, Mobius.
What's his name? Mobius. I said Mobius. Sorry, Mobius. Owen Wilson's character.
Oh, okay. The
blonde white guy who likes surfing?
Yeah. I
know. We got also Council of Kangs. This is why I kind of wondered, are they being like the puppeteers in this situation? Remember, they know everything, they watched it. We had almost looked like hundreds of Kangs in that scene in the arena, which is ripped right out of the comic books. Yeah. Should we be excited?
The scene was amazing. Yeah, it immediately felt like it was a callback from the comics, because I remember very clearly that page. But again, it's so confusing when you involve time travel and multiverse and all that stuff, because because the whole point was that all the Kangs went to war and destroyed pretty much everything. But now all of a sudden we have a console where they're all working together. So did this happen before everything or after everything? Do they eventually go into like the Civil War thing, and then they all break out into their own factions, and the Council of Kangs is no more, and that's how everything started to get destroyed. Like it's really confusing, and that's what I was thinking about also, was like, this is a really cool scene, and it kind of gives you an idea of what to expect, that maybe we're going to see different Kangs throughout the entire phase 4 we're at right now.
No, we're 5. No, we're 5.
We're in 5, phase 5. Yeah. So are we going to see a different Kang every single time? Is the council as a whole going to be more involved? Like, the scene was great. I loved it, but it brings more questions.
Mm-hmm. More questions to me.
It was a cool scene. I liked it. But you know, as I said, I haven't read these comics, and so it was very confusing for me as well, like where they're actually going with it. I thought they would explain a bit more throughout the actual movie about, you know, how this all connects and the direction it's going. But it just feels like it's almost like I have to do a bit more research to really like see the path of where they could go. Like, so Danny, actually, like, what's a good comic like series to kind of read to kind of understand the Kang story a bit more? Like, do you think?
So a lot of the Kang stuff is more of the old school stuff, like 90s, 80s comics. But I think if you want to get a hold of anything recent, you might want to look up Iron Lad, anything that involves Iron Lad, because he is a variant of, it's probably going to be a spoiler for you if you read the comics, but he's a variant of Kang, but he's a good Kang. He's trying his best not to be the Kang that everyone expects him to be, and he explains a lot of what Kang is and his history with the Avengers throughout timelines and stuff like that. So if you want to look up Iron Lad, that might help out a bit.
He's the one that's like Iron Man or something, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then also remember, this connects to Loki, because Loki and the He Who Remains brought up the council. Remember when we saw the different Kangs shifting? That was basically the council. At the very end, when he was on the desk, he was eating his apple. So again, great connections. I just hope they flesh out everything again. Yeah. So do you feel the council could bring more trouble?
Yeah, I think that's the idea, that there maybe the whole idea is maybe just one Kang isn't the real villain. Maybe it's all of them, and we'll get to see a little bit of all of them.
Right. So the council is part of the creation of the sacred timeline, which we learned from Loki, is to keep everything in order, so that the Kang doesn't run around start killing everyone. Is to keep everything straight and in order, and that's the whole council trying to work together. And we have the 3 main leads. So now with He Who Remains dead, I wonder how they will impact the rest. Are they going to go after the other Victor Timely, or we know the other? We'll see the other Kangs, but are those rogue Kangs? Or maybe for some reason Victor Timely could be someone who's there to help them. We don't know. Yeah. So it's a lot of questions. So
it would be interesting. Yep. Oh, sorry. I think I'm a little delayed. But yeah, it would be interesting to see some Kang on Kang crime, you know, and that throughout these movies.
And we do know that Nathaniel Richards is part of this.
Yeah.
Who was not Victor Timely, who is the direct descendant of Richard Reed. So Fantastic Four. This is when Dr. Doom. You had a great name. We're gonna see your cameo, Gary, probably.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. That's what I'm waiting for. That's gonna be an epic moment.
Was there anything else that you guys wanted to mention?
No, that's pretty much it. I think I vented a lot about like MODOK and which is that's pretty much the only part that really stands out to me the most, is how they did MODOK a bit dirty, and of course Kang. But I was looking forward to a better MODOK, and we didn't really get it.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I'll just say, like, I'm waiting for Marvel to stop playing it safe a little bit, because there was already a lot of critique about the last phase. So I feel like now they should be kind of like, you know, putting their foot on the gas a little bit and kind of taking more risks with these movies to get us more excited for what's to come. You know, because that was a great moment at the last Comic-Con when Kevin Feige showed everything that's coming and stuff. Like, that was amazing and it got me hyped. But like, if we're gonna see more movies like this one where it's just an enjoyable family movie, but there's no real consequence to it, kind of thing, like I'm gonna get burnt out very quickly on these movies. And maybe the TV shows will be better in this phase. I don't know, but yeah, I need to see more at this point. I need to see them take some risks. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just looking forward to there being more fleshed out stories. I think the 3 main Kangs that we saw are going to be used with the main focus, because remember, they all bring their different take on things, and while they're united right now, there's going to be a lot of fallout. We have the Beyonder, who is extremely powerful and in a way created the Secret Wars after wanting to know about good and evil and making them fight against each other. So you have that one. You have Immortus, who is another, who's a part of kind of the timekeepers, which, remember, the birth of the TVA, that is going to, even though they're now, I don't want to say fully dissolved, there's a lot of questions that they have now that they know, I know a majority, especially with the, what is it, Ravina, her character, she knows that she was the one who was the girl in Loki. Ravenslayer. Sorry. I said Ravina. Isn't it Ravenslayer?
Can't remember.
Loki.
The one that
TVA.
was in charge of TVA?
Yeah.
Yeah. She was
she now knows everything.
she's
She was a
in
girl.
the comics. Yeah, in the comics she's a love interest for Kang, yeah.
So which Kang is she a love interest of? So maybe she's the one who ends up finding him. Remember, she went off to go discover herself. So maybe she does some kind of travel, and that's how we bring in Kang. We don't know, but it would be interesting to see a lot with her character. So it's Loki. I look forward to. I'm questioning more about what's going to go on with the other ones, so we'll see. But yeah. So if no one has anything else to add, then we'll see you much later. Thank you guys for joining us. Danny, plug anything that you're working on.
Yeah, I do have a gaming podcast that we post up also on the Koalition, so you guys can check it out at the Koalition if you'd like to. I also have my own website if you want to do it that way, gamerguardians.net. The podcast is Gamer Guardians, and you just talk about pretty much everything gaming. My most recent episode, I did a solo one where I pretty much talk about this possible downfall of the gaming industry if they continue with some practices on, just greed with microtransactions and releasing broken games all the time and stuff like that. It's a bit of me on a rant, but it's an interesting topic that I like to talk about and debate. So check it out.
Gary, Dr. Doom Swayze.
Yeah, big shouts to Danny. Like, this is our first podcast together. Hopefully not the last, it was a great time. But yeah, you can catch me on the Koalition. We're going to be making some content. Me and Dana, we're going to be making some content together soon about the Power universe on the Powercast, because book 2 Ghost season 3 is coming out very soon, so we will be on the main channel. And yeah, you can catch me on Twitter too, twitter.com/Gary Swaby. Usually talking about whatever I'm working on at the time there. But yeah, at the moment I'm just very busy and quiet, but I'll be coming back with some stuff soon. I'll be very visible again, and I'll be tweeting a lot more often, but at the moment I'm just kind of lying low. But yeah, you can catch me there.
Very nice, Doom Patrol. And as for me, we have a lot more of other content. We still have BMF that we do. So that's a weekly show. It comes on Fridays. We break that down. We have a lot more interviews that are coming up. We have more stuff with Marvel, DC, Shazam is coming up as well. So that should be really fun and exciting. And a lot of other TV shows that I will break down and tell you if I hated them or love them, or if you should watch them or not. I'm just one person with one opinion, so do what you want. But you could check out that content either way. So once again, thank you for joining us. This has been the Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania spoiler review. Have a great day, afternoon, evening, and we'll see you later. I don't. Ah, there we go.